underestimate. SB and Sean breaking through the noise, serving real talk, the genuine choice. No pretense, no hidden schemes. Just sports, passion, fueling dreams. From the field to the court, every play that's made. Real takes over fake debates. Turn it up, hear the honest sound. Unfiltered sports all year round. Discussions pure, no masquerade. Real takes over fake debates. Turn it up. Over fake debates. Real takes over fake debates. Real takes over fake debates.
And we are live. Sbtalksports Sean Webb. Real takes over fake debates. It is Friday. Sean, how you doing today, brother?
Doing good, SB. How you doing this Friday?
Chilling, man. Cannot complain at all. You know, we got a lot of things to talk about here today when it comes in the sports world. I wouldn't be expecting to talk about a coach getting fired on a championship contending team when the playoffs are like a couple games away, a couple of weeks away, but it happened. Then the GM got fired too. Shedeur Sanders, who was talked about being at the top of the draft, top 3 pick, possibly might slip out even the top 5. Then we got to also talk about, with Adam Silver putting the play in the play. And then, usually around this time, we had early in the season before All-Star break, everybody was complaining about NBA is boring. But now this is the most exciting point in the NBA. And even with 2 games left for a majority of every game counts. So we're going to go through what's at stake for every win. And then also Shaq and Dwight might have squashed their beef, Sean. But let's get into what's going on. First, Nuggets fire coach Mike Malone and GM Calvin Booth. In a shocking event, this happened. Like you said, it's close to the end of the season. There's a lot of things going on. So why? What was the reason? Who was the reason? This is person at fault, that person at fault. But Sean, let's go to your initial reaction to it when you heard the news before we dissect to what was going on. What's the problem?
So I wasn't shocked by the move, SB. What I was more surprised by was the timing of it. Mm-hmm. But I always ask, is there ever really a good time during the season to make a move like this?
I think the latest for me is December, maybe. But not really. Yeah, no, not really. Not really. Because you think about it, it's still going to impact the team badly, too. Or it depends, maybe.
Potentially, right?
Potentially, yes.
I mean, I think if you do it early enough in the season, there's obviously still some time potentially for a team to, make some adjustments based on who's stepping in, particularly in a case where you have an assistant coach already on the staff stepping in and in the interim role and things of that nature. I think back to when Cleveland, fired David Blatt, halfway through his second season. The Cavs actually had a really good record.
Yep.
So it wasn't that they were needing to play catch up in the standings so much as it was, I think there was some concerns about Blatt and LeBron in particular in that instance. And that in some instances, it seemed like when you would watch that dynamic, it didn't really
work.
Jive very well. And where there was more of a trusting and an understanding relationship with Ty Lue. But I don't want to make that about this. I think this particular situation, SB, came down to was not necessarily a basketball decision.
Yeah.
This came down to if the reports are true, which again you have to believe to a degree they're true. And if you listen to some of Mike Malone's statements over the last year or so in the press and the media, it came down to these 2 guys could not get along well enough to continue the relationship. Mike Malone's a very strong personality.
Yes.
And I think in some instances, you got to be true to who you are. And I think Mike Malone is true to who he is. He's the son of a coach. And also, he's very true to, who he is. And, he's a Northeasterner from New York originally. He's a straight shooter. He's going to tell it like it is from his perspective. And, and in a lot of ways, Joker, I think, being obviously the franchise player, but also having the personality he has, it's not apples to apples, but I kind of compare it to Greg Popovich and Tim Duncan. Greg Popovich could be the way he was as a coach because of Tim Duncan's personality.
Yeah.
And, and so I think those things matter. I think in this particular instance, Mike Malone and Calvin Booth just couldn't see eye to eye. And I think where it came down to was there's a fundamental belief I have, SB, that alignment does not require agreement.
Yes.
These guys could not even get aligned in terms of how they wanted, one, the roster to be constructed, but two, who should be playing on said constructed roster. So for me, it came down to, Josh Kroenke and the Kroenkes making a decision to say, we're just going to move on, and again, you think about organizations, great organizations, head coach and front office, there's an alignment there. They don't always agree and they don't always have to agree, but there's an alignment in terms of how they want to try to do things, and they support each other in that way. And it didn't seem like that was happening from both sides.
For me, I was definitely shocked of any reason why Mike Malone would get fired, because I'm like, man, this man just won you a championship. Does that not hold any weight no more? That's my initial reaction when I'm seeing it, because I'm like, I understand the Nuggets like not playing as good right now. They had lost like 4 games at the point in time after he got fired, but I'm like, that's not worth. They not in the play-in. They still a top 5 seed. I'm like, and the Nuggets are still dangerous, so I didn't get it. Then more and more came out. Then GM got fired. I'm like, oh, okay, they clean the house. There's something else deeper than rap going on. So when I've kind of found out the initial thing was going on, I think the problem with these two guys too, in particular, from what I'm hearing, this is just only from what I heard, where you got Calvin Booth trying to tell a coach how his rotation needs to be. His rotation is bad and this person needs to play. Then you got the coach telling the GM, well, I need this player. You should have brought this player. And it seemed like they were just more of the blaming each other instead of trying to meet in the middle. And I also think both sides was too busy worried about what the other person should be doing instead of doing their job. Because I feel like as a GM, I get you supposed to put the roster together, but your main concern shouldn't be about my rotation. That's the main thing. And also, but I also should, like, obviously you have an eye on it because you helped him build the roster and you like, hey, I got this talent. He's good. I'm trying to tell you that's like that, but you shouldn't be like to a point where you scoring and like the coach about that. And I feel like the same way vice versa. Like, yeah, Mike, your job is to handle the coaching stuff. And yes, you supposed to let me know who you want on the roster, but you shouldn't be up in arms at me complaining about why this person not this or this person's not doing this. No. And then it's like at a point it's so bad that the president had to get rid of y'all and that y'all couldn't even just align together like, okay, we just disagree, but let's keep the main goal. So it got that bad with you two guys where it's like, hey, look, bro, we can't hide them here. And I didn't want it to do. The president also said he didn't want to make it seem like he picked one or the other, so he just got rid of both of them.
Yeah, so I think 2 things. One, what you mentioned, SB, about the front office questioning a coach about rotations and why certain guys aren't playing. That happens in every sport. Because, again, from a front office perspective, hey, we brought this guy in because we believe this guy can help us win. There may be some development that needs to happen here, but we ultimately believe this guy with development, with coaching, with the opportunity to play, can help us win.
Okay.
So it does happen. Now, again, I think what it comes down to for Mike Malone and Calvin Booth, and again, if the reports are true, they weren't even talking.
That's correct.
And that is a massive problem. And so, again, I have to presume to a degree that when Josh Kroenke brought them in the room to talk with them was to see if they could kind of chip the ice in that relationship. And it was beyond, from Josh Kroenke's view, beyond repair. And so, like you said, rather than saying, hey, we chose sides here, one of them had to move on. Now, again, Calvin Booth was likely to move on anyway because he didn't have a contract after this season.
Right.
But I think, again, what it came down to was, hey, listen, this is untenable for the organization in general because, again, it's not just these two guys. These two guys are very much out front in the face of the organization. But you got to know other people in the organization saw this. And this has probably been boiling for some time. And rather than, again, try to see if you could chip the ice, that, again, it might have reached a point where it wasn't able to be chipped away. They just made the decision to move forward and move on.
No funny stuff, Sean, but I think Mike Malone is going to get another job quick, by the way. He's a great coach. But what does that tell you about Mike Malone? And obviously you said he's a straight shooter, so he might come off as the wrong way to certain people. Sometimes him being a straight shooter, that even though the GM contract was up and he was going to leave, and, Mike Malone is your coach. They didn't even want to wait it out even with him and just be like, we're going to get rid of him. So what does that kind of say about Mike Malone then? Because they could have just waited out and let the GM walk and kept Mike Malone.
What it says is, in these situations, SB, for me, having worked in many spaces and been in many spaces, a lot of times it's not having talent that gets people in this position or put away. It's the personality and the personality clashes that get things off track and stuff like that. I know there were people that said, hey, Calvin Booth should have gave Mike Malone what he wanted. Well, Calvin Booth is working at the pleasure of the Kroenkes. The Kroenkes are basically giving Calvin Booth a budget of what he can spend. When you're spending money for Joker, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Aaron Gordon, you're pretty top heavy. So from Calvin Booth's perspective is, hey, no, we couldn't re-sign Bruce Brown because Bruce Brown's numbers were beyond where we were. No, we couldn't re-sign Jeff Green because Jeff Green's numbers are beyond where we were. No, we couldn't re-sign KCP because KCP numbers are beyond where we were. Now, I'm going to point out the KCP thing for a second. By all reports, there was an offer for them to sign and trade KCP to Dallas. And they would have gotten back, I believe, Tim Hardaway or Josh Green or one of the others.
Okay.
And Denver declined. So, and again, why he declined, we won't know. That's a question you have to ask Calvin Booth. Again, I think maybe he was looking at the amount of money that particularly Tim Hardaway Jr. was making and said, no, we just can't. We can't see that amount for Tim Hardaway based on our current roster construction.
Right.
And I think Tim Hardaway Jr. is probably like $5 million less where KCP ultimately ended up signing in Orlando. So, it's those type of things that, again, there's some clash there. Some of the draft picks that Calvin Booth has made, Christian Brown, I think has proven to be a really, really solid player. But Strother, there's still question marks about Strother. Zeke Naji, still questions about him. Their first round pick this past year is out for the season. But, you know what I mean? So there's legitimate questions about how the roster was constructed. But again, those questions can't just be, this is Calvin Booth's fault. No, what was Calvin Booth told and given in terms of, from ownership, what he can spend and what he can allocate towards player expense. And that stuff matters.
You see what just happened with Nico. So, everybody saying fire Nico, but Nico got that call and your boss told you do this job. You got to do your job. But also, it wasn't just from the point of Calvin Booth and Mike Malone having a problem. Some of the Nuggets players had a problem. So it was rumored, that some of the Nuggets players was turned away with the treatment of the star players or another player, even though Russell on the tail end, Russell Westbrook. So the Jokic, and I would believe the other player was Jamal Murray. And they was pretty much saying they was getting like better treatment, or pretty much he was using them as an example, like be more like this or do like this. So when it came to Russell Westbrook, when he was doing that, because they said Mike Malone held Russ to a high standard because Russ was one of the top 75 players all time. Russ' resume speaks for itself. So some players were turned away from Mike Malone with the extra treatment Russell Westbrook was getting on and off the court. What how you feel about this, Sean? Because I don't like that much. You know, I love Russ. I rock with Russ heavy. I don't like that Russ is being used as a scapegoat, but also Russ ain't always 100% innocent, because it was been reports before with Russ when he was on the Clippers, and I guess he was mad at how Ty Lue was rotation or how Ty Lue was treating him, and then he Bones. I forgot his name.
Bones Highland.
Bones Highland. There you go, Bones Highland. And he said Russ was like, I'm going to come in with my top 75 jacket on. He better respect who I am as a player and everything like that. So Russ ain't 100% probably clean with everything, because we already know Russ, when it comes to him being a teammate, and I was supportive of his teammates, I never heard nothing bad about Russ. But also I have heard Russ like he's a distinct taste. He got like that Kobe mentality when it comes to like his attitude or how he moves towards things. So he might turn a lot of other people off. Like you said, Russ would be like, I'll pick you up, but you feel any disrespect towards Russ, he going to be like, I'm top 75. I'm one of the best point guards of all time. So lots of people could get turned away from that. So what was your reaction to possibly Mike Malone losing some of his players in the locker room because of the treatment of Russ? Or do you think Russ is just being used as a scapegoat?
I think it's a little bit of both. Obviously, when you bring in a veteran, and Russ is a veteran, been in the league, now for 17 years.
Yes.
There are certain treatments that you give vet guys that may be different from some of your younger, and particularly some of your young guys who are necessarily guaranteed time in the rotation. The fine line with coaching, though, is what I would tell people with coaching, it's not your ability to connect 1 through 3. It's your ability to connect 4 through 15. In this case, you got to be as, connected to the last man on your roster as you are to the fourth guy in your pecking order, so to speak. That's how you build championship cultures. That's how you build cultures of cohesiveness and where guys buy in totally. Also, there's some question for me with this particular story is what they say to Russ would be his role when he got there. Because I think you and I both talked about it. If Russ is willing to come off the bench, I think it's a great role and a great move for him and for them, because, again, it allows them to either play, Christian Brown or Strother or whoever in that KCP role, because obviously KCP's gone now, and Russ can help buoy the second unit. And then also Russ could play in the closing unit next to Murray, things like that allows Murray to play off the ball some in the closing unit. So what was Russ's role, and was that communicated, early on and throughout the rest of the team? So, but this all comes down to, again, that coach's ability to stay connected 4 through 15. And if you can do that, I think it serves better for the team as a whole. But, again, you expect Russ, again, as a vet guy, as a guy who's obviously, you said, top 75, going to be in the Hall, former MVP, going to be in the Hall of Fame. I think you expect there to be a certain treatment of him, but also, and I want to say from a basketball perspective, there are times when, SB, I know you watch Russ, it's kind of easy to get frustrated with Russ, because Russ goes 100 miles an hour, and sometimes with some of the turnovers and some of the decision making, it can drive you crazy. Just from a viewer perspective, you got to imagine if you're on that team and that's happening, is Russ getting, jumped on or getting talked to the same way a guy, again, your 8th or 9th guy who commits the same turnover? And again, that's where coaching, I think, matters, and the ability to be able to chastise one guy helps you be able to chastise other guys as well, and correct and hold guys accountable as well. And I don't know if they were necessarily doing that. Mike Malone was doing that this season, particularly with Russ.
And I think because it threw a lot of people off, because I think what would have probably saved Mike Malone and not throw everybody off if he treated Jokic that way, because he said Jokic was getting the same special treatment like two, but people be like, that's Jokic. Jokic's the best player in the league, so he get away with it. But I think what would probably save Mike Malone in the long term, and like you said, you brought up like how Jokic give you like that Tim Duncan they give you that Tim Duncan Popovich type of vibe. I think Jokic would have been cool with that. Jokic don't say nothing. And obviously, we're going to get into another part of the story where Jokic didn't say nothing either, too. Again, so I think that would have helped, because now when it comes to why you got to say something to a Russ, because I know some people probably don't want to lose Russ, because Russ does come off like that. Like, if you go at him too much, you might lose him. So, you know, and Russ don't change the way he play. And if Russ wears hard on the sleeve. So maybe that's probably the problem why he did treat Russ like that, because he maybe didn't want to lose him. But if Russ see Jokic getting talked like that, then nobody else can say nothing. And I think that's just one of the smartest things Popovich did, was that, hey, if I could talk to Tim Duncan like this, can't nobody else say nothing, or nobody else can question why I'm saying what I'm saying. So I think that was just the only thing that killed Mike Malone. But also, we got to talk about the quote that Josh Kroenke had dropped. The president had said exactly. I got the shorter one too, because it was like he had like two different quotes. He said, while the timing of this decision is unfortunate, as Coach Malone helped build the foundation of our championship level program, it is necessary steps to allow us to compete at the highest level right now. It is championship level standards. I can say it short because he had a long one. But just off that point, because I really will going off that part in particular, where he's saying he understands that the timing of this was bad. But he said it was unfortunate circumstance where I had to get rid of them. It sucks. But what's your reaction to Josh Kroenke quote statement? Did you see the full statement? Then do you think he really handled it the right way, or do you think he should have just waited out?
I think there's a fine line with how something is handled and why something is handled the way it is. I don't know if the how could be better. But again, if the reports are true, SB, the why is there is an energy, a negative energy between two of the main people and the main cogs in this organization that is completely, from Josh Kroenke's view, I believe, impacting why things are going where they are. And so let me get rid of that energy and out of the building. Let me get that out of the building as quickly as possible. I do want to say something though, and again, I think there's a professional courtesy that has to happen, right? As he mentioned in the statement, Mike Malone built the championship culture in Denver. But it's also very telling with the firing of Taylor Jenkins and now Mike Malone. There are only three coaches currently in their jobs that were in their jobs during the pandemic.
And the pandemic was what?
2020.
2020, 5 years ago. So every coach got changed in a 5-year span. I think the Milwaukee Bucks still paying 3 coaches right now as we speak.
2.
Bud must have just got off the books then.
Well, so, Bud, so what happens when you get hired somewhere, Bud is making a lot of money in Phoenix. So whatever you make in Phoenix, then that it basically if you say Bud was making $10 million a year in Milwaukee, he's making 15 in Phoenix, Milwaukee's off the hook for what they owe Bud because Bud is making that.
About that. I hate that. Now, if I sign the 5-year deal, look, I'm over here making both kinds. I'm making both money. I'm
Well,
making
no,
both bread.
it's not the way. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. Yeah, it's basically it's not the way. It's not the way it works. You know, Milwaukee still owed Bud while they had him under contract while he wasn't working. And again, if say he got to Phoenix and he was only making $8 million and Milwaukee was paying him 12, Milwaukee still owes him $4 million. Milwaukee doesn't have to pay him the entirety of that contract. So
okay, I like that then.
So it's but that said, what does it say for the state of? I think the NBA coaching has become like the NHL. NHL does this type of stuff where they'll get rid of somebody, and I mean, you just got to the conference finals and be like, he's got to go, it happens.
No sense to me.
It makes no sense. That's how the NBA is starting to feel right now. And if you're a prospective head coach, I'm not going to say you worry about it, but I do think it is something you're going to look at individual organizations and wonder, why can't you all keep a coach long term? When you look at the three organizations we're talking about, Miami, Golden State, and San Antonio, what have all three of those organizations had over time? Success. And a lot of it is that consistency of who's in the head chair, who's in the lead chair. And until that person basically decides they don't want to be there, that's generally not going to change. Yep. So, how these organizations are doing this I think is a major, massive question. Do I think Mike Malone deserved better?
Yes.
Maybe.
Got you a championship. And he's like his fingerprint is over. Like, and you ain't got no excuse of where you can argue like with the Frank Vogel when LeBron, Eddie LeBron really did GM coaching everything. He had Jokic, but Jokic don't do nothing but hoop. Jokic don't really got his handprint on it. It's already known for a fact. Jokic literally said he don't say nothing. He come in, do his job, and then go to his horses in the offseason. So Mike, the championship culture in Denver, has Mike Malone name written all over it.
Well, and again, I don't want to discount what Joker does.
No. I'm talking about like the extra impact on the court. Jokic, that's Jokic, get the job done.
Yeah, and I think
the culture of the team.
And I think Joker is a leader, but Joker's more of a leader by example in terms of he does come in, he does put in the work. He is someone quiet as kept. He does call teammates just to chat with them, sometimes just to joke with them, things like that. He is very plugged in with the guys on that roster, particularly the guys that have been there, obviously, for, a little bit with him now. Obviously, there's some newer guys this season, but he does that stuff. It's just not talked about because he doesn't publicize it in that way. And certainly he's not an overly public personality.
No.
But also, when we remind people, Mike Malone had been a head coach 2 other places before Denver and got let go. Whether the personality was part of it or just the lack of results was part of it, you have to ask those other organizations. I just know that at a certain point, when Mike Malone gets to his next job, you got to coach and you got to be the coach you are, but you also realize there's got to be a symbiosis between ownership, front office, and the coach and the head coach. And if that's not happening, the owner ain't going anywhere.
Nope.
Right. So it's usually going to be the front office person or the coach. And I think, and again, I don't want to browbeat this point, SB, Mark Jackson getting let go in Golden State was not totally about basketball.
No.
Right? It was about, there was some issues between him and the front office and ownership, and the players loved him. That wasn't even the question. It was that stuff, and I think that's why he got let go, and I do think that's part of why we haven't really seen him get another opportunity to be a head coach in the NBA. That stuff matters, and you gotta be willing to play that game, particularly at that level. And again, particularly if you're in a space where you don't have final say, and the head coach does not have final say in a lot of these cases.
All I'm saying, Sean, if Ime Udoka can get a job for what he did, Mark Jackson ain't doing nothing that bad. Come on, he ain't doing that bad. So, look, if Udoka can get another job again, I just say Mark Jackson can. You can't tell me. Tell me, just compare the two. Weigh the scale. Tell me. Let me know. But also, when we talk about Jokic, and you saying he'd be vocal. It was announced to Joker. Josh Kroenke came to him and said, hey, this is what we doing. We getting rid of Mike Malone. We getting rid of Calvin. We just getting you the heads up, and this is the reason why. Jokic, pretty much all Jokic said is pretty much okay. He understands it, then he went to work. Do you think Jokic should have probably said more because Mike Malone is his guy, or you think Jokic did the right thing, but just like, okay, he accepted it and he just moved on?
I mean, I don't think he's not someone to make a big fuss. Obviously, he's watching, he's seeing what's going on too. He understands it. I think he also understands that that's not his job to make that decision. He said, I'm not the GM. I'm a player. I come to play. I come to hoop, and that's what he's about. So he wasn't consulted about, should we do this? He was told this is happening.
Yep.
And there's a difference. Had he pushed back on it, would it have changed things? Probably not.
Probably not.
Because again, at this point, it seemed like they had made up their mind. And again, if the reports are true, Kroenke wanted to do this earlier this season.
He said All-Star break. He wanted to do the All-Star break.
So, again, I think it speaks to, again, what Joker is about. And again, I put Joker in that Tim Duncan and Steph Curry class in terms of, they're guys who, if you ask them about something, they'll probably give you a tape, but they're not the ones that go to the front office or go to ownership and say, we need to make a change. This is not, he's not Magic in 81, so, it's not, he's not James Harden in Houston, so
LeBron any year. LeBron any year, LeBron.
So, you said it, I didn't. But so I think, and also I think too with Joker, the interesting thing, and I know we got to move on. The interesting thing about this particular situation is Joker is eligible for a 3-year extension this offseason for $212 million. Is there any part of you that believes he's not going to sign that extension when they put it on the table? Because they're putting it on the table.
They better put it on the table.
Yeah, but do you believe that he's not going to sign it?
Oh no, he's signing that for sure.
Okay, thank you. So
we got to upgrade that stable, baby. We got 2 new horses coming. We need that money. We got some races to prepare for all season.
Yeah. So I think it also says that he understands this is a business. He's only played for one coach. That rarely, if ever, happens in today's NBA. Now he'll play for presumably 2 coaches. So.
Do you think the Nuggets is wasting Jokic's prime with this coach change and then not trying to keep the pieces to be a consistent championship team?
I think the ownership, because this is the same ownership group that owns the Rams, among other teams, they have to be honest about, did we offer the resources to still field a competitive team around this generational talent that we have in Nikola Jokic? That's where they got to be honest. If they're going to be honest about that, I think the answer overwhelmingly is no. Now, here's the second piece of that. And again, I don't want to make this is not a Denver Nuggets stream, obviously.
Yeah.
I think the second part of that is the guys they have invested in, and 2 in particular, haven't necessarily lived up to the investment at this point, which is Jamal Murray because of the injury situation, and Michael Porter Jr. kind of is what he is. So I think Aaron Gordon has been the perfect match.
Exceeded expectations.
Yeah. And again, when he's healthy, we know he's a really great match for Joker. It's those other 2 that I think they might have overvalued those guys in the short run, and I think it may be hurting them in the long run. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Michael Porter Jr. this offseason, just because of his contract. I know he's got 2 years left on his deal, but just because of his contract, can they move him and fill out the roster better with a little more depth by moving Michael Porter Jr.? That is kind of remains to be seen.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait after what they do after this point, and I'm gonna be like, hey, y'all might be wasting my boy Prime. Okay, quick, because like you said, you don't want to make this Denver Nuggets stream. We got a lot of other stuff we got to talk about. Quick, did this just hurt the Nuggets championship chances by with the firing of Mike Malone?
That remains to be seen.
Okay,
That remains to be seen. You know, we've seen teams do this.
Hmm.
Again, David Blatt. The year they got rid of David Blatt, they went on to win the
Mhm.
championship. You know, Lakers got rid of Paul Westhead. They went on to win the championship that season. It does happen. To me, what hurts the Nuggets' chances more than anything is the health of Jamal Murray. If he's not healthy, I don't think they have a championship chance.
No, they're not winning.
He's got to be healthy. And so if he's not healthy, I think that hurts them more than firing Mike Malone.
I'm gonna say yes, it does, and because even though like all the all the firing that you brought up, at least with all those firings, the coach had enough time to build the chemistry and build his rotation and know who he likes and know what rotation is going to be in when it comes to playoff time, when it's winning time. I just think it hurts the Nuggets from the fact of the timing of it. So the new coach, that even though he's already there, but at the end of the day, even if you're there as an assistant, you kind of already kind of know what's going on, but you're going to still want to do your own thing. Or you probably have your own guys on the side that you've been working with, or they've been working with you that who you kind of like. They probably wasn't in the rotation or probably was heavy in the rotation. You never really know. So I just think it only because of the timing it does hurt the Nuggets because you got a whole coach who never been a head coach in a playoff game and for a championship team. Like, how you gonna be able to make those certain adjustments or know when to do it when it's playoff time? That's it. That's the only thing. I think if they would have did it during All-Star break, I have to I'd be like it's up in the air. But just for me with the timing of it, I think it killed their championship chances. Next up on the list, Sean, UConn coach Darren Harley is rumored to be the Nuggets' next head coach. Good idea or bad idea? What you thinking?
I think when you combine the basketball acumen of Dan Hurley with the basketball acumen of Nikola Jokic, it could be very scary. When you watch some of the sets and things they run at UConn, which again, they run some of the similar stuff that Golden State runs, and they've got some stuff from Miami, from the Heat. You put that with Nikola Jokic, it could be very scary. Now, again, how interested in? I know that there's a rumor that there's a mutual interest. You could understand why it would be that way.
You coach Jokic. I'm taking that. You got to take that chance. It's generational talent.
Right. And again, we just mentioned, Jokic is eligible to sign a 3-year extension this offseason. And even with that 3-year extension, they could have some flexibility to make a move in 2026 for another player. If I'm Dan Hurley, I would be very interested in it. And again, the Nuggets should be interested in Dan Hurley, just as they should be interested in Mike Brown, just as they should be interested in, Taylor Jenkins and some of these other coaches who, may be available this offseason, which I know we'll talk about probably more on Monday. But the fact is that Dan Hurley should be at the top of a lot of lists if you have a head coach vacancy in the NBA. He is that good. Now, I know some people don't like some of the antics and some of the crying and all that stuff, but take all that away, he is a very, very, very good basketball coach.
I say you definitely got to give him a look. Me is rocking with UConn too. I kind of want him to just stay where he at, keep building that up and then keep the UConn basketball going. But you definitely he's a good coach. You definitely got to give him a look. And then I think you always be concerned with you worrying about NBA college coaches transitions to the NBA. And like you brought up, Hurley already run NBA style of plays. So he kind of already got sets. So I think he'll come in and fit in perfectly fine. He's one coach at college right now. I think he could come right in and fit in perfectly fine. But, Sean, like you brought up, we getting close to the end of the season. A lot of teams probably got 2 games left. We got to go down the list of what's at stake with these last couple of games. First up on the list, Lakers and Knicks could lock up the 3rd seed with wins. How big is that? And do you think they need to secure the Knicks and the Lakers?
Well, from the Knicks' perspective, if you lock up the third seed, that means in the second round you would be playing more than likely the defending champ Boston Celtics. Good luck with that. And I think it's probably more important for the Lakers from a seeding perspective, just so they don't have to play OKC in the second round. That again, in the second round, they would play presumably the winner of Houston and whoever the 7th seed ends up being in the West. So I think from the Lakers' perspective, locking up the third seed makes more sense. Now, here's the flip side. If you're the Lakers, and I'm just using this hypothetically, and you have to play the Warriors in the first round.
Yeah, I said I want them to avoid that, because I feel like even if the Lakers come out on top, that's a 6-7 game series guarantee.
Right.
That's 6 game series guarantee. You don't want to come out. Luka and LeBron gonna be tired, or even if Steph and Jimmy win, Steph and Jimmy gonna be tired coming out that series. That's gonna be a tough. That's a tough out.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer. Don't fight to avoid certain opponents. You play your best. You do your best. Where you get seated is where you get seated, and then they roll the balls out and let's go and see what happens. So
if I'm the Warriors, I'm trying to avoid the Lakers. I think it's more for the Warriors.
I don't think they care. I think the Warriors right now feel like they can beat anybody in the West.
Which they can, but I mean, if you got the choice of playing the Rockets or the Lakers, I'm taking the Rockets. Or even because even if you go down again, Sean, if you go up to the 5th seed, you got to play the Nuggets. I mean, you might have to play a play-in game, but
you play who's on the schedule, and you're not going to worry about it. And I know people are going to look at the regular season matchups and say, "Oh, this matchup in this regular season was this and that." I'll say it once, and we said it again. When playoff time comes, the regular season matchups don't mean diddly. We've seen teams sweep teams in the regular season, and come playoff team play that same team in the playoffs and get smacked. So miss me with the whole regular season matchup, because again, the regular season is very different. Travel, are you coming off back to back? Guys sitting out, all of that stuff factors in. So, if I'm the Lakers and I want to finish as best I can, regardless of who the matchup is, just finish as best you can, and then let's roll the balls out and let's go.
Next up on the list, Sean, Bucks and Pistons have a matchup to decide the 5th seed in the East. Who you got winning? I know you say you don't worry about avoiding nobody, but I've tried to tell you, avoid Detroit at all costs. I do not want to. If I'm the Knicks or the Pacers, I try to avoid them. But what you got for this matchup to decide who's going to be the 5th seed? Who you think gonna win? Giannis haven't playing out of his mind, by the way. This last
Giannis, well, he's had to. Yeah, he's had to.
He had no choice. Yeah, he had no choice.
Yeah, he's had to. I think for me, I would say Detroit, simply because they're at home, and obviously, when you talk about, them playing at home, they play the same way pretty much where they're on the road, but at home, that intensity is dialed up, and they are going to be physical, and also I think again without Dame, Milwaukee's just not the same team. As great as Giannis has been these last
they're on a 6-game winning streak right now too, by the way.
Yes, but it's just sometimes it's just matchups make fights, and I do feel like this is one of those where it's like, okay, Detroit's going to play a certain way. I think Isaiah Stewart is guaranteed to get a tech in this game.
Guaranteed to take. Guaranteed to take. Guaranteed to take.
But that said, I'm taking Detroit at home, and they got Cade back, obviously, and he's back and ready for this playoff run. So I'm going to take Detroit at home.
This is tough because Giannis have been playing out of his mind. It just I guess the crazy part about it is I want Detroit to win, and my heart is telling me Detroit, but my basketball manager is telling me, because especially with that, like Isaiah Stewart probably going to get attacked, do some dumb stuff. I can see Giannis probably dropping like 30, 15, and 10 this game and then win. Because it just seems like the Knicks and the Pistons are on a crash course to play each other. I'm gonna take the Bucks winning. My basketball man said, especially how hot the Bucks is right now with Giannis going off. I want to say the Pistons so bad, but I think the Bucks gonna win and secure the 5th seed. Next up on the list, we got my red hot Chicago Bulls with Josh Giddey. You know, I ain't taking that red hot lightly. We locked it in. The Bulls are on pace to get the 8th seed. Obviously, they have to win out. But with them having to win out, the Atlanta Hawks need to at least lose one of these games coming up. Most likely the game against the 76ers, which I highly doubt it happened because the 76ers are tanking. So what you think about this? Because for me, obviously I'm the Bulls guy. I hope that Atlanta would lose, and the Bulls could probably try to go for the 8th seed, maybe try to sneak into the 7th, but who want to play Boston? That's to say you want to avoid Boston. I'll say you rather probably want to play Cleveland if you had to pick between the two, because Boston look like it's going to be a sweep for anybody. But, yeah, so what's your reaction to this one? Do you think the Bulls end up moving up to the 8th, or do you think the Hawks solidify themselves at 8th with a win and then the Bulls be stuck at 9th and we got to play the Miami? Our teams going to probably have to see each other again.
I mean, Philly... obviously their 3 best players are out for the season, but they are competing.
They are.
So I'm not just going to pencil the Hawks in for a win with this against a Philly team that's competing. Washington's been interesting. Again, they obviously are not trying to fight for a playoff spot, but with their youth and their athleticism, Sarr has shown some signs, as well. So I'm not guaranteeing anything in either of these games, to be honest with you. I think if you're a team, again, the Bulls and the Hawks are trying to, jockey, potentially. And obviously the difference between being an 8th seed and being a 9th seed is the 8th seed, you only have to play one game to win to get in. So, you want that 8th seed if you can help it. To be honest with you, I have no idea how this is going to play out because of the 2 teams they're playing. And also, can I say, SB, I think there were a lot of people that were very critical of the play-in before it actually happened. And Adam Silver and the NBA offices get a lot of heat for some of the stuff, deserve it or otherwise. This play-in, I think, has been probably one of their better ideas.
Yes.
Primarily because it's made the last month of the NBA season matter more than it ever has. So the fact that we're talking about the 8th and 9th seeds potentially this late in the season is done wonders, I think.
Yeah, no, he did a good job with the play, and I doubt it. But sometimes you gotta let it cook. Sometimes some things taste better when you slow cook it instead of you trying to get microwave it. It ain't good. We got to talk the mess of the Western Conference. Obviously, with the Lakers, I pretty much believe that with their last winner they just got, unless they just go on a terrible win, like a terrible losing streak, and everybody else win, which obviously is not going to go like that because somebody else going to lose. They could drop to the 6th seed. But the mess of the Western Conference is that the Lakers, Nuggets, Knicks, Warriors, Grizzlies, Timberwolves are all like a game behind each other, like whatever point where, like, if you lose these last 2 games or win these last 2 games or go 1-1, you can go from like the Nuggets are the 4th seed. If they lose both their games, they could probably drop to like low as the 7th, 8th seed. So we never seen drama like this when the Western Conference in a long time, to the point of like when team had to win like 50 wins, had to have 50 wins just to be an 8th seed to get in, like that. But what's your assessment of the mess of this Western Conference where everybody's like a game behind each other?
I mean, it just proves the parity. I mean, when you look at just the Western Conference standings, I mean, obviously OKC is the top dog. I mean, we're not going to deny that.
Yeah, no,
but when you look at just the teams from 3 to 8, there's only in the win column 2 games that separates those teams. So, and that's why I was saying earlier, like, I'm not getting overly crazy about where I'm seated. I just want to be playing the best I can be playing. And again, let's roll the balls out and see. But would it shock you if a 3 seed loses to a 6 seed in the West?
No,
it shouldn't, because there's not many games separating those teams in the standings. So again, I think what it says, there's some level of parity in the West. And again, I don't think at the end of the day, the only thing that's guaranteed is these games can be played, and somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. Who remains to be seen, but we just don't know until the balls are rolled out, and let's see what happens.
I ain't gonna last. The Clippers been hot right now. I would be mad. You go in there trying to play the Clippers right now. The Clippers been hot. Last one, and I think nobody we really cares, but the Sacramento King Bulls can't clinch the ninth spot with a win.
Wouldn't they technically be the Bull Kings?
The Bull Kings, yeah. Or Chicago. I don't know how to put it. Chicago. I don't know, man. It's just here. I'll be honest. When I see this on the list, I was like, I almost didn't put it in the show, but it was there. But who cares? Nobody cares. The Kings for the year. Shout out Zach LaVine, though. I'm literally watching them and just rewatching the Bulls last year. I swear. Nobody cares. They gonna probably beat the Mavericks or lose to the Mavericks at the 10 seed, or just lose to the Timberwolves. It don't matter. I think 1 through 8 in the West is set. I don't believe the Kings or the Mavericks gonna do anything. Now the East is a little different, because I don't know. The Heat can turn around and do something. The Bulls can turn around and do something because they hot. The Hawks could do their job, or the Magic could fall. You never really know. But with the Kings one, nobody cares. Next up on the list, Sean, we got to talk about this real quick. So Dwight Howard has been inducted to the Hall of Fame. Obviously, the Hall of Fame come up, and then you get to pick people that you want to walk you out for your Hall of Fame. Dwight Howard added a name to the list, and we were shocked on it to hear it, because we thought these guys had a long beef. So Dwight asked Shaq to walk him out for the Hall of Fame. Shaq said he's agreed, and he said, Dwight's my guy. Of course, I got him. So what's your reaction to this? Do you think Shaq was going to say no?
No. No, I didn't think he would say no. I think, obviously, when you had to compete against someone who literally kind of had your career, you think about Dwight to Shaq, that Dwight started in Orlando, Shaq started in Orlando. Dwight went to L.A., Shaq went to L.A. Dwight
was both dominant. I think when I say dominant, like how dominant Shaq was offensively, Dwight Howard was the defensive version of Shaq, because Dwight was that dominant defensively at his powers. So I feel like he's just a defensive version of Shaq. He's like, I literally feel like that's the same player too, though. But I think it's good.
And kind of some of similar personalities in that they didn't take themselves too seriously, kind of joke around a lot, that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, when you talk about the NBA and the center position in the NBA, I don't think there's more of a club, NBA position club in the NBA than the center position. When you think about, because you think about that, that's the position. That's the only. There's no other center on the floor. There may be another forward on the floor. There may be another guard on the floor, but there's another center on the floor. So when you are in that club, so to speak, of centers, there's an appreciation at some point for you. I think Dwight obviously has not played in the NBA in 4 years, and so bygones are bygones at this point. I believe Kareem is also. He asked Kareem if he would walk him. I'm not sure if Kareem has responded yet, but I think he said Shaq, Kareem, and KG. So KG not a center, but you know what I mean. So, but still, it's. I think there's a mutual respect for for that. And I have to believe in Dwight's case. This is a way of saying, hey, I have a great deal of respect for you. I would be honored if you would walk me out. And Shaq, doing so, I think is basically saying, hey, listen, that was what it was, and this is bigger than that, and we're good. So that's all.
I appreciate that Shaq did it. I just wish they didn't really clash as much as you did because, like you said, Shaq and Dwight are very similar to their career. I think Shaq was the most dominant player ever, especially on the offensive side. You could say Dwight was one of the most dominant defenders ever. Because I wish, it came from like him going to the same spot as his career, the Superman nickname. It seemed like it was just over the little petty stuff. And I know Shaq joke a lot. But sometimes Shaq say a lot of bad stuff and people take it the wrong way. Then, Shaq always try to backpedal. I'm not joking, they sensitive, but Shaq be saying. I just wish that Shaq could have embraced Dwight more a little bit because that would have been like cool because that could have been like the second coming to Shaq, and then maybe he could help Dwight add a little more to their offensive arsenal or help him be more great. And then also, I would say I wish Dwight was maybe a little more receptive to Shaq to accept it because also Dwight really was a knucklehead at a point in time because I heard he was like a distinct taste when it comes to people. Either you like Dwight or you didn't like him. So, he didn't listen at his point in time. And basketball players are they got like ego problems. They definitely do. But it comes with the game. But I'm happy that Shaq agreed to walk him out. I think that'll be something big and that'll be good for basketball to see. Sean, Shedeur Sanders could fall in the draft. It's been a lot of things going on with why Shedeur might fall. A lot of things that I have been hearing does have nothing to do with play, I should say. So one of the first things that people was complaining about was Shedeur possibly being at the top 3, but he don't want to go to none of the top 3 teams because they said Shedeur coming off as like arrogant and they don't really like on about it when I think he was on Up and At 'Em.
Mm-hmm.
Where he wanted to go. So, Sean, what do you think? What do you think it is going on? Why Shedeur might fall? Is it really that just because they think Shedeur ego it is, or do you think Shedeur trying to force his way to a certain situation?
I think when you have 32 teams evaluating a guy, you can get 32 different thoughts and evaluations on a player, just based on one, who's doing the evaluation, and two, how they evaluate. There are teams, and again, if the reports are true, there are teams that do not have a first round grade on Shedeur Sanders. So if that's the case, then certainly that means that he's dropping in the first round. But all it takes is one team to have that grade on him and to be in the position of need and decide that, hey, he's the person we want as the quarterback of our franchise, short or long term. I think the other piece too is the more he falls in the first round in particular, the more I think it benefits him because it probably means he's going to a better situation. Now, it's not apples to apples, but give you an example. Patrick Mahomes. We talk about Patrick Mahomes as one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play that we've ever seen, things like that. What we don't talk about enough is that Patrick Mahomes got to the best situation.
For him, heck yeah.
Right? Because one, Kansas City didn't stink when they got Patrick Mahomes.
No.
They had the 27th pick. They traded up from 27 to 10 to get him. And he goes and they have Andy Reid and they have Alex Smith, who basically makes so Patrick Mahomes doesn't have to play from day one. And Andy Reid's success and track record with quarterbacks going all the way back
The quarterback whisperer.
Yeah. So you're talking about a great place for him to end up. I'm going to take you back even further, SB. 1983, excuse me. Dan Marino. Dan Marino fell in the draft to late in the first round. Nothing to do with football. It was about some off the field rumors, and they were rumors at the end of the day. But off the field rumors about Dan Marino, and he ended up falling to the Miami Dolphins. Could not have gone to a more perfect situation at the time. And we know the type of career Dan Marino had, as an individual player and then a quarterback. So Shedeur Sanders falling in the draft, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's Shedeur Sanders is one of those guys that needs to get to the right situation, regardless of where it is, so he can start and hopefully have a long-lasting NFL career as a starter. Because we've seen other guys who were uber talented in college not get to the right situation and end up hurting them, in their career. So that's what I would think about for Shedeur Sanders is, can you get to the right situation? I'm going to throw a name out there, SB, and I'm just going to ask you, is Pittsburgh a perfect situation for Shedeur Sanders?
After what they just got with DK, and also a guy who could possibly deal with players with egos because he bring off that leader mentality. Yes, I'm going to say yes, Pittsburgh is a perfect situation for him.
Okay. But why else would Pittsburgh be a perfect situation for him?
Coach Mike Tomlin. So he used to that type of coach with his dad, like Coach Prime, where he demands stuff from you. It's a certain type of standard that you got to have. It's a certain expectations, and the lights will never be too bright for him. So the same way, like how Coach Prime was running his program, hey, this is what I need y'all to wear. Y'all better be like this. This is the type of standard I need you to be like this. And a lot of people are not used to that because they're everybody professional athletes now. Everybody had, like I said, ego things. So you might go from a program where it lets you do whatever. You can't go to the Steelers and do whatever you want. And Coach Prime, the way he went, how he ran his program, you can't come to my program and do whatever you want. So I think Shedeur be more prepared to deal with a coach like Mike Tomlin.
Right. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, as an organization, historically, they are stable. Yeah. So Shedeur going to what is generally considered one of the most stable organizations in sports, I think benefits him versus him going somewhere like, say he went 3 to the Giants. Well, we don't even know who the Giants coaches are going to be in a year or two, or who the GM's going to be in a year or two. So that's what I'm saying. So I think it's the money, the drop in the money is going to stink in the short term, but in the long term, can you get to a great situation? So that's what I think. When they talk about falling, sometimes you're not falling. Sometimes you're just fitting into the right place and fitting to the right place that you're supposed to be. And I think that's what is the case with Shedeur.
Yeah, I just didn't like how they were trying to make it seem like, quarterbacks always going to be arrogant attitude. I also think something coming to play where, like, teams throw out these rumors or say these things because they want a guy to be. Maybe I can't trade up and get him. Steelers. But maybe, throw it out, man, he got a little ego problem, man. He thinks too much. He's not taking the meeting serious. He don't want to go top 3. Oh, wait. And the next thing you know, with this pick, with the 12th pick in the draft, the Steelers selected a dude in the office looking like, bro, you just told me all this about him. I was like, well, he fell too low, so I had to take him. But also we got to talk about Mel Kiper, who has Shedeur Sanders as the number 1 ranked quarterback on his big board, but he always do different mock draft from what he hearing and how GMs and everybody talking. So right now, Sean, Mel Kiper, from what he heard, when people feel about Shedeur, has Shedeur dropping 9th to your Saints. 1, would you want Shedeur, and would Shedeur be a good fit for your Saints? Because I've viewed the Saints guy, so I got to hear from your side, from your perspective on this one.
New head
He already
coach.
wearing black and gold. He already wearing black and gold too.
Yeah. No, listen, new head coach. I think Kellen Moore has shown in his time that he can work with different types of quarterbacks. Obviously, Dak and Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts, just to name a few. I think he could definitely be a great fit in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
The question I would have, and it's not really more of a Shedeur question, it's more of a Saints question, is organizationally, are you prepared to support a young quarterback in Shedeur? That, to me, is the bigger question.
I already got one, too. But, what's his name? Rattler?
Spencer Rattler, who's going in his second year. But, yeah, so I think that's the biggest thing is I think you got the right potential long-term head coach in Kellen Moore. There remains to be seen. He hasn't coached the game yet. Remains to be seen. But I think you tie those two together and you say, hey, these guys are not just our present, they're our long-term future. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with that, but you have to support that with everything else around it. And that, for me right now, is the question I have with the Saints. Because at some point, as we talked about when we were doing our offseason wish list, the Saints can't keep pushing the cap charges to the future. Can't just keep at some point you got to just eat it and say, hey, we're not going to be very good right now this year because we're, finally paying our penance on pushing all these cap charges forward. But in the next year or so, we're going to be fine. And we got the right head coach and quarterback to guide us through that.
I think Shedeur to the Saints would be a great fit, but the only thing I will question is two things. One thing you just brought up with the cap problems, and you keep pushing the cap back because you'll never be able to build another championship roster because you still paying money that you owe. One, like you just got to just take it 1 year and say this is going to be our bad year. But two, with Spencer, this is his second year. Are you giving up on him already? Because you still got him and Derek Carr. So now you're bringing another quarterback in. And let's be honest, when you look at the Saints roster, they got a lot of other needs that you really need to address. So is it worth getting a third quarterback when you probably needed something else at multiple positions on any side? That's the only thing that I look at with it for sure. But I think Shedeur could fit, yes. But you already got a young quarterback on the roster. You still really didn't give him a chance yet. Do you really want to give up on him now? And then two, like you said, you got to eat the cap. And there's other positions that I think they need to fill.
And I would say I know we're planning to do a draft live stream for the first round. As players start to drop in the draft, so to speak, again, when they get past certain points, because again, if Shedeur falls out of the top 3, which I presume he will, that's why everybody's mocking him to the Saints, because those other teams have quarterbacks under contract that either young guys or guys, they just acquire in Geno Smith and Justin Fields with the Jets. That's why Shedeur going to being picked at 9 is not impossible. But I also believe that if he starts to fall at that point, the Saints and if he continues to fall, other teams will start calling who are down below. Again, Pittsburgh comes to mind. Maybe it's a team in the second round, at the top of the second round, that says, hey, we're willing to trade up to get back into the first round to get Shedeur. That's what you will likely see, depending on what the Saints decide to do with that pick at that point, depending on who's on the board.
Yeah, I can see I think I could definitely see the Steelers possibly making that move, because obviously you see what they did with the quarterback situation. So it's looking like, hey, that'll make more sense. I think that you putting that in my head, and I'm thinking like Shedeur with the Steelers kind of do look right. I think that'll be a great situation for him to go to, but we just see how it goes. Also, speaking of quarterback, young to old, Sleepy Joe gets another $4 million. I guess Joe Flacco ain't retiring no time soon. Hey, if you're gonna throw me $4 million just to get off my couch, that old man get up. Honey, I'll be back. Let me go to Cleveland, get this bag. I'll be back. What's your reaction to the Browns signing Sleepy Joe?
It's a solid move. Obviously, you're probably going to look at what he did there a couple years ago, helping guide them to the playoffs. to me, the big question is, what does it mean for Kirk Cousins? Because I know a lot of people had Kirk Cousins potentially linked to the Browns. So does that mean they're out on Kirk Cousins? Does it mean they won't take a quarterback at 2 in the draft? I think for all intents and purposes, we got to believe they're not taking a quarterback at 2 if Cam Ward is off the board at 1. So it's a solid move for them. You know he can start if you need him to, but you also know if he's a backup and you need him to come in and play and fill in, Joe can do that. So it's a solid move of the Browns. They didn't really have much in their quarterback room. Kenny Pickett's there, obviously, and then Deshaun Watson, who's there, who's not going to play this season, more than likely. It makes sense for them to do this.
And one thing, not to go back on the Shedeur thing, because obviously the Steelers at 21, and they could probably move up a pick, right? So let's just say your Saints pass on Shedeur. Obviously, the Bears got the 10th pick. The 49ers got the 11th pick. Do you take Shedeur? Shedeur still there? Or you just stay with Purdy? You pay him?
Yeah, they've all but said Purdy is their guy for the future. They're going to figure out a way to pay him, and they're fine with that. They're not taking Shedeur.
And then, after speaking, we go again. Dallas at 12. You take him?
They're not taking Shedeur. They just paid that.
Okay. Last one, and I'm done, because I'm only going on the pixels here. Well, two more, because it's 13 Dolphins. Shedeur there, you taking him?
No.
Colts.
No, they just paid Tua. No, because I don't think the Colts are ready to give up on the Anthony Richardson experiment just yet. So, no, I don't think the Colts will take him. And obviously, they did just sign Daniel Jones to compete. And I use compete in air quotes with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this, SB, and I don't know if you've thought about us doing this, but maybe the Monday before the draft, that Monday podcast before the draft, maybe we do a mock first-round draft.
Yeah, I think don't they got like little machines where you could pick teams and we could probably do every other team. Okay, we can do that. We can do a first round. I like that.
Yeah.
We can do that. Yeah. And then we see what teams we could be. I gotta try to make sure we got it in order, because I definitely want you to pick for the Saints.
Well, also what we would do is I'll just say just put it out there. You pick for the odds, I'll pick for the evens, but I will pick for the Saints and you will pick for the Chargers regardless.
Okay, bet I'm down for that. Okay, we can do that. Cool. All right, last up on the list, we got to talk about this NIL. Let me make sure I say this man today, right? Actually, I know about this kid before he went to Tennessee. I was seeing stuff about him in high school. But Nikola Jokic is skipping practice session amid NIL negotiations. Sean, this NIL stuff is getting out of hand. Wait, I had the story. Hold on, because I want to read it exactly. Give me 2 seconds. I closed it on accident when I was closing our stories. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry about that. Where is it at? Because this is crazy. Okay. They said Tennessee quarterback Nico didn't attend Tennessee spring practice Friday. Source: the sophomore passer absent was a surprise to the team. Nico is reportedly negotiating a new NIL contract ahead of the transfer portal opening April 16th. Representatives for the Signal Call denied Thursday that the camp engaged in discussion to renegotiate Nico's deal. Tennessee's administration and players are frustrated with the situation, including the quarterback skip practice. And his first NIL deal pack was worth over $8 million. He said the deal reportedly paid. Hold on, wait. It said the Long Beach, California native signed a pack worth over $8 million with the Volunteers NIL collective prior to committing to the school. Considering one of the groundbreaking contracts during the early days of NIL, reportedly pays Nico between $2.2 million and $2.5 million per season, and he's looking to raise it up to $4 million.
Yes.
So, what is your reaction to this, because this is what we talk about the NIL, man. This is what we talk about. It's getting out of hand. It's getting out of hand.
I mean, here's the problem at SB. It's no different than the NFL. When a quarterback signs a deal, if there's another quarterback that's looking around saying, hey, this QB just signed a new deal, looking at where I am based on my production and my value to the team, I need to get a deal fair to market, closer to fair to market. We need to renegotiate terms. That is essentially what Nico is doing. Side note, Nico Harrison's got to be very happy that somebody other than another Nico is in the news other than him about now. But that said, this isn't surprising at all when you look at, again, what I think Carson Beck got $4 million a season to go to Miami. So, you know, it's not shocking at all. And the best way to get paid in this particular instance is to withhold services. Yeah. And to say, hey, I'm not going to play until you pay. And so I'm not mad with Nico for doing this. I do believe, though, again, it's going back to what we talked about before. NIL right now is the wild, wild west. And until there's some serious structure and regulation around it, and again, are we talking a salary cap? You know, I don't know, but you know, this is going to continue to happen until that happens. And so, you know, but again, I think it's looking, you know, because again, the thing is, Nico could have entered the transfer portal and could have gotten more on the open market. He decided to stay at Tennessee. And again, I don't know if part of that decision was, hey, Tennessee was willing to renegotiate his contract, but you got to believe that, you know, he wants to be paid at the market that Carson Beck and others are being paid at, and you can understand why.
Yeah, I heard I believe it was Cam Newton said this. He said, like, college sports is pretty much becoming like semi-pro now with all this money and different players at different ages. People are staying in college longer. You know, people like 26, 27 still in college playing sports. Like, I don't know how y'all staying in college that long. You a super duper graduate, man. Man, you can drive all you can drive all your teammates wherever you need to go. Your younger teammates who just got there, who 18, they don't gotta go pay the hobo down the street to go get a drink. They go get the old man on the team right here, 27-year-old man over here on the team. But now, all jokes aside, I just think, like, I don't even think it need to be a salary cap. It need to be a structure when it comes to contracts because of two reasons why. One, with this point, because now it's like, okay, you give the person the contract they want. Obviously, when you see somebody else get more money, you're going to want more money. Now, all of a sudden, after a certain point in time during the season or after one season, hey, look, pay me, double me more, I'm just going to leave. And I think it's not fair to the colleges either, too, because from the point it's like, all right, you want to win all in to get this person here. So I would want a contract like yearly. So basically, I think max you could probably do like 2. Hey, do 2 years. Hey, you got to stay here for 2 years. And then put a clause in there, say if like you don't start or something, like you I think both sides should have an out if they want to get out on it. Like if player, hey, you guarantee me this, I guarantee I'm starting, I'll play, cool. Or if the players is not doing up to par, whatever, just have an out. But the out can't be, I just want more money. So if you don't give me money, I'm just leaving. Because I think it's just it's gonna be a new player on a new team every year because the money gonna always go up every year. Every year is gonna go up. So it's gonna be a dysfunctional rotation of players, and nobody development wise is gonna actually develop the right way because you keep going to different situations. Hey, it might be 1 or 2 players who might benefit it and go from one school and then go to a better school who had better development program for them. Yeah, but that's gonna be like the 1 or 2 out of 10. Then the next thing too, where I think it should be established with years and paperwork from because there's been too many situations where these schools are lying to players. They say, hey, a handshake deal, we're going to pay you $200,000 for NIL to come be at my school. You go to the school, you get there, they don't give you nothing or they give you half of the money. So I also think it needs to be established in writing with everything. Everything has to be established in writing for the player. So I just want a year-to-year, like two-year contract type deals where you stay in school for at least like 2 years. And when everything got to be on paper so the players can get exactly what they pay for. Because if not, it got to be. That's what I said. It got to be some type of structure to it, Sean. Because if you telling me Nico signed the $8 million NIL deal, but he getting paid 2.5 every year, that means pretty much they was hoping to keep him there for at least his whole time until he decided to go to the NFL 3 years. So that tells me that's how they doing the contracts in. So at least give the team a backup plan. Well, at least I'm gonna at least keep you for 2. Or the players, I got it on paper, so at least I know I'm gonna hold you to this is what I'm supposed to be getting paid. Something else got to happen. I don't want no salary cap on it. I don't think it should be no limit on how much you make. Hey, if one school willing to pay you 10, but they try to make the salary cap $5 million a player, no, go get your 10, brother. That's just me. But I definitely think some structure has to be done. But that's me. That's what I think it should be done. Just to make the school feel safe. You guarantee your star player for at least 2. Make the player feel safe. It's on paper. It's contract, so you're guaranteed to get your exact money. And I think that's the closest thing you can get to make everything good. That's about it. Sean, 57. What you got for it?
Obviously, you see the Florida League behind me, so got to go with Ricky Jackson from the Dome Patrol, and throw another one out there, Johan Santana.
Johan Santana. I like that. Johan Santana. Oh, okay. Where do I want to go? 57. I was trying to find a rare pool with NBA, but I don't want to do no Mike Muscala. That's disgusting. I sure look at it. This is one of the bad numbers. Forget it. We gonna do Mike Muscala. It's just rare pool. A rare pool right there. That's terrible. And I'll do Clay Matthews. Mike Muscala and Clay Matthews. Let's do that. It's been. Oh wait, we got breaking news, Sean. I don't know what we got.
No, it was just an update to the Nico situation.
Well, he's not going to Colorado. I can tell you that. By the way, they already even if that young boy said that's their future quarterback. He has been in contact with 3 schools that he had. Now, if Nico go there to play, that means that the Slater kid might be gone, maybe, because Prime did come up and say that hey, we might be getting rid of people. You know, Prime might on it, but Oregon, Ohio State, Colorado. Ooh, if he go there, that'd be crazy. Ooh, if he go to Colorado, that'll shake something up. But that's the only thing I see with Colorado is that the Slater kid got to be the one that gets the boot, because the Julian kid, they all in on him. So, but we'll see though. And the Wild Wild West, Sean. Got to see. But yeah, appreciate you guys for watching. It's been another great episode. Real Takes on Face, baby. SB and Sean Webb. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.